Okay, so basically what we're going to be doing today is we're going to hear from three of our directors who are not me. The first person up is Priya Ramesh, who is our policy director. She's going to talk to us about what STAND is doing in terms of policy, and she's going to give us a briefing on 4 regions, so South Sudan, Iraq, Syria, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. So we welcome your feedback throughout. Please use the question answer box that you should be able to access. If you can access that, please type a question and say hello or something so I can see. Yes, Jan Western works. Okay, I got that one. Thank you, Erin. And if you can keep going through with that, there's also should be a raising your hand function. Can anyone use that one? We can test this out. It appears not so much. All right, we'll keep going. The next person who is going to talk to you guys is our new communications director, Elizabeth Shelley. There we go, thank you. She's going to show you guys she's going to show you guys a new resource that we've put together and update you on some new policies from the communications team. Following that, we'll have an overview of the Students' Declaration from the Advocacy Director, Kristen Pue. Kristen, how do you pronounce your name?
It's Pue.
Pue.
Was the screen sharing working?
The screen sharing is now working, but we're on the wrong slide.
Yes, sorry.
It's all right.
There? Wait, this one. Is this the one you want?
Yes, great. So I'm going to wrap it up at the end with some short and sweet updates from chapters, and then we'll have like a good in-depth question and answers period, though please do type your questions throughout. Thank you, Krista, and thank you, Tori, for typing in the questions. So please do type your questions throughout, and if it's a burning question, we'll get to it in between the presenters here, and otherwise it will wait until the end. So this is a call where we're really, really, really looking for input from chapters. So please do not hesitate and share whatever thoughts are coming into your head. Minor editing only required, all right? So as we start with a new vision for STAND as we're going forward and we're revisioning what we're doing, I'll hand it over to Priya and she will give you an update on what's going on. Priya.
Hello? Can you hear me, Eddie?
We can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. Hi, everybody. I'm Priya Ramesh. I'm STAND Canada's Policy Director as of August 2014, and today I'm going to briefly summarize policy's position in STAND, our current activities tying into the organization's overarching project, and overview some of the current situation in some of our focus regions. So to begin, just to give you some background, as STAND Canada's focus is primarily on maneuvering our government's attention towards regions undergoing genocide, and from there creating policy, advocacy, and dialogue within Canada to make genocide prevention a part of our foreign policy, it's with great ambition that we have chosen, as of fall 2014, to extend our official regions of focus as an organization to 7. Genocide prevention means carefully looking at the entire range of nations under a risk of genocide and actively choosing to put our efforts into examining the social, political, and economic conditions of these regions that would benefit the most from our organization's focus and purpose. So this year, we felt that there needed to be an increase in the nations we have a discussion about. From policy, this means our research, which before heavily looked at Sudan, South Sudan, and the DRC, has now expanded to include Iraq, Syria, the Central African Republic, and Myanmar. So some of these countries would at a glance seem like a hotbed of human rights issues, religious issues, civil war, political upheaval, and other high conflict activities, while others might not be as heavily covered in world news or not obvious as a region that would be under genocide watch. So STAND's policy team's efforts are then to currently weed through this existing mass of information surrounding these regions and highlight the bits and pieces important in understanding the triggers for genocide, the existing climate that may be instigating or encouraging it, and ways in which our government could work with the governments of these nations to subdue conflict, encourage international dialogue and cooperation, and create long-term change. So the task at hand my team and I are engaged in then is primarily research. Bulky, thick, but important research. Some of these regions like Myanmar and Syria we've never really looked at before, and some of these regions like Iraq require research that goes further than just listing the signs of genocide, but also looking at extremist religious groups and the speed at which they're spreading. So we're on fairly new grounds here and in what we're looking at, but the goal as of January is to have collected a fairly dense amount of information that will lead to being able to understand four things. One, the factors that have led to each region's current level of conflict. Two, the efforts of our government thus far in these regions. Three, what our government must do now to aid ongoing conflict and prevent future narratives of genocide. And four, how can STAND play a part in this action? So policy aims to be the informative backbone to our major project right now, which is the ongoing STAND Canada Student Survey. While the opinions of chapters and students are instrumental in moving forward in drafting a large policy document that will outline what our government's foreign policy focus should be in regards to preventing genocide in these regions, it is policy's job to have the information required to carefully write recommendations for each region of focus based on its current situation, and then from there, narrow down these recommendations further based on the results of our survey, input from chapters, and other STAND teams to make a major policy mandate by spring of this year. So background research on our 7 focus regions have been completed as of December, and now we are going forward towards a larger project called the Monthly Policy Newsletter. In this, we intend to gather news and updates from each region on a weekly basis and then release a document at the end of every month, which acts as an overall update on the region, alongside which policy will provide minor policy recommendations and analysis on the ongoing situation. So today I thought I would briefly overview the conflict in 4 specific regions in which we see a lot of activity: South Sudan, Iraq, Syria, and if time permits, DRC. It's going to give you guys a summary of what's happening as of late and major commitments from our government towards the conflict in these regions. These updates have been taken from extensive research compiled by STAND's current policy researchers, which is an entirely new team of university students volunteering their time and efforts towards our joint cause. So to start off, let's start with South Sudan, which has been a focus of STAND since its separation from Sudan. So the current situation in South Sudan is a pressing concern for STAND and will be a major influence in how our foreign policy recommendations this year will be shaped. While only a few months ago, in late October, a peace deal had been reached between the president of the nation and the rebel leader, this deal is largely fragmented, with various parts of the nation that are not as close in proximity to the heart of the government still violating the rules of the agreement. Tension between different ethnic tribes also remain on a high, and the immediate results, aside from continued fighting, is increased human rights violation, mass displacement, and famine. We can add to this a complete fracturing of the interior legal and political system, which can only be rebuilt after all fighting has ceased. From a statistics standpoint, 1.4 million people have already been displaced in South Sudan, with about 100,000 people living in 10 UN compounds around the country. 10,000 deaths have been already reported since December 2014, and malnutrition, disease, rape, and domestic violence is spreading rapidly, even within these UN compounds. Our government right now has recognized the civil war and has largely chosen to play sort of a mediating role by promoting dialogue between the two sides and advocating for human rights and humanitarian assistance. South Sudan has been placed on our focus list of 25 development priorities since its independence from Sudan, but the outbreak of the civil war has quickly pushed this importance higher up on the list. So far, the Canadian government has worked in this nation through 5 primary avenues of action: poverty reduction, food security, infrastructure development, and political development. The 5th is humanitarian aid through the UN, Red Cross, and other NGOs. So about 4 projects were started after the conflict began in 2014, albeit a bit late, with the start date of about mid-2014. These projects have actually ended as of December. So the 2 projects that exist that extend into 2015 focus a bit more on healthcare, and right now there's 17 ongoing projects, most of which began prior to the outbreak of civil war. In September of this year, Canada announced that it plans on opening a new embassy in South Sudan, In November, our government implemented targeted economic sanctions against 2 military officers in South Sudan, one from each side of the conflict. So this is a snapshot of South Sudan, what's been happening lately. The conflict is current, the danger is spreading, is imminent, and the efforts we're making to assist in this region could definitely be better. Recommendations to our government to take action will have to be through economic, political, and human rights development. South Sudan, like most other regions at risk of genocide, has a multifaceted problem at hand, which will take which will need evolving policy recommendations and shifting developmental projects to stabilize this young nation. So I'm assuming there's no pressing questions that have come up so far. So I'm going to go ahead with Iraq. So Iraq and what I'll go after that, Syria, is completely new for us. So we are trying to, approach research to these two regions just in a new way. It's also interesting to look at these regions. So currently, Iraq is undergoing a human rights disaster with a slow-motion genocide in place, in which ISIS fighters made up of radical Sunni Muslims have already forced Christians out of northern Iraq and are now targeting other minority religious groups in the nation. The effects of the rise of ISIS have been large-scale displacement, death, hunger, violent crimes of rape, beheadings, and even reports of being sold into slavery. From a foreign policy perspective, Canada's role in Iraq has been so far to ultimately pitch a tent next to the United States in their view of this extremist group. Our government condemns the actions of ISIS and has joined the fight against the group in November by launching its first airstrikes and deploying 600 Canadian Air Force personnel to be part of a 6-month mission dubbed Operation Impact. Currently, we are midway through this mission. We will also be providing Iraqi security forces with military equipment and training. So from a foreign policy standpoint, our research shows that the threat in Iraq has no chance of lessening in the coming months, and that the Canadian government is working to combat ISIS with allies through armed forces, so primarily military intervention and military aid. On a developmental level, efforts towards humanitarian assistance and political peacemaking must be made. So from STAND, our policy recommendations going forward will be focusing on this space then. Moving forward with Syria, we spent a lot of time researching how the conflict in Syria came about, which, I don't have enough time to go into the history, though it's very interesting. But the onset of the Syrian conflict can ultimately be traced back to protests that took place in Darra City in around March 2011. Opposition supporters were deeply angered by Bashar al-Assad's regime's application of lethal force to suppress pro-democratic displays, and citizens began to take arms in order to defend themselves and attempt to oust the security forces from their local areas. After this, armed rebel groups then began fighting government forces for control of cities, eventually manifesting into a civil war. So throughout 2012 and 2013, this civil war has blown up into a very huge world crisis. And as of now, there exists massive divisions and factions existing within the civil Syrian rebel forces. And it kind of highlights this is probably one of our most complex research regions. That's what I would say about Syria. And statistically, right now, Syria, the immense violence has caused a humanitarian crisis where an estimated almost 8 million people have been internally displaced, 12 million need immediate help, and roughly 200,000 have been killed. And from our government, the Canadian government has provided a significant amount of humanitarian aid so far, and according to the Government of Canada's Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development, the nation has committed about $630 million to date in humanitarian development and security assistance in response to the current Syrian crisis. We're also committing $210 million to support development projects in the neighboring state of Jordan in order to strengthen healthcare and educational services to accommodate more Syrian refugees. Canada EM also deploys technical experts to provide short-term humanitarian assistance to UN organizations, as well as currently supporting a way in which we try to relocate Syrian refugees. That's primarily the focus of Canada right now in this region. We have also committed $67.2 million to assist security-related issues of the Syrian conflict. These funds intend to help lessen the threat of chemical weapons and other weapons of mass destruction, but our research shows that though that's where these funds are supposed to go. Like, that's a bit fractured. There's no actual direction to that. So as of this summer, our immigration minister told a newspaper that the Canadian government plans to increase its number of Syrian refugees resettlements by implementing a large-scale operation. It is implied that the project would involve the sponsorship agreement holders, Middle Eastern countries and NGOs, as well as provincial governments. Most recently, Canada is in talks as of December with the UN to help them resettle 10,000 refugees in the next 2 years, but prioritize refugees as in persecuted minorities. So from policy, our recommendations going forward will be to encourage this large-scale operation, as in we want it to be discussed further with specific micro-guidelines that can be made as a result of our ongoing and prior research. In terms of assisting the refugee crisis going on in Syria right now, Canada could certainly put in more effort, because if I remember correctly, in 2014 there was like a certain quota of refugees that we had to relocate, of which was about 2,000, I think, and we only actually managed to successfully relocate like 300. So we could be doing better. Adi, am I good to go ahead with DRC, or am I running over time?
I think you're good.
Okay. So to end my little speech, I will go into DRC. So as of December 2014, the Democratic Republic of Congo is considered to be the worst place in the world to be a woman, and the political situation is very dire right now. Currently, increasing protests against the proposal to change the constitution is underway, and this constitution would allow President Joseph Kabila to run a third term, and these are what the people are protesting against. And this has led to an increase of political tensions in the nation. Government authorities are silencing these protests with violence, threats, arbitrary arrests of human rights activists, journalists, and anyone who is in opposition of the current political party rulers. Armed groups are still active and continue carrying out brutal attacks on civilians. There have been few efforts to bring commanders of M23 and other armed groups to justice. Minimal progress has also been made to capitalize on gain, despite a period of optimism in late 2013 that the violence on civilians would decrease in eastern Congo. Alongside this, state security forces have been a part of extrajudicial killings, rapes, and enforced disappearances. So from our government, the goal of our international development program in DRC is to help establish a more democratic, prosperous, and equitable state, one that will be able to reduce poverty sustainability and secure the future of its children and youth. Canada also provides humanitarian assistance to communities in the DRC affected by the conflict. In 2014, the DRC was confirmed as a country of focus for our government's international development efforts, and our international development program in the DRC is aligned with the country's poverty alleviation strategy, which we work with their government to make this a possibility. We have also increasing investments in the DRC, notably in their mining sector. There's also bilateral merchandise trade between Canada and the DRC, which reached about $21.2 million in 2013. And the figures are not out yet for 2014, but we assume the numbers are going to slowly increase based on trades of other goods, though this is a modest trade route. In 2013 to 2014, the Canadian Development Assistance estimated at around $0.21 million for the Republic of Congo, essentially targeted humanitarian assistance. The main multilateral partner here was the United Nations Refugees Agency. Going forward, policy recommendations in this region will be made to continue efforts towards humanitarian aid trade, and also perhaps have an increasing focus on creating a space for political change, dialogue, fairness, and stability. So yeah, this is just like a rough snapshot of our 4 regions, just to kind of let chapters know on like how we do our research, how we compile it, what we're looking for. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Priya. We do have some questions for you. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Awesome. So we have a question from UBC about how we are classifying at risk of genocide. And I just want to say before you start, I know the rest of the question, and Krista, you want to wait until until when Kristen is speaking. But this is a great question, and your following questions that we talked about previously will be discussed as well.
Do you want me to answer this now, Adi, or like?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
If you can.
So, before I joined STAND, at least, we did have certain regions that have always been classified globally as at risk, which is DRC, Sudan, South Sudan, and Central African Republic. But as you know, things change, and currently there is like a global scale which measures countries that are at risk of genocide, currently undergoing genocide, and then, you know, high warning signs of like kind of like a on the line. So there's like 3 stages, and the 7 regions we have now currently not only show signs of violence, conflict, and genocidal activities increasing in the coming year, but also there is current conflict going on right now with enough evidence to showcase that there's either slow motion genocide in place or genocide has been going on in these places for the past couple years. And we've chosen 7 because, I mean, it is currently, well, we can always have more. Let me say that, okay? We can always have 10 at-risk countries that we do want to do our research on. But we've chosen 7 right now because these 7 regions are most likely to increase in like the issues that is going on right now. It doesn't look to be decreasing, and all of 2013 these countries have been undergoing conflict. So these are the 7 we've chosen. That's how we've chosen. Most at risk of genocide, undergoing genocide, with no foreseeable sign of improvement in the coming year.
Great. Krista, does that answer your question, if you want to indicate? The way that we select countries, we'll talk about in a little while.
I do think Kristen might be a bit better at answering that.
Yeah. Okay, so unless Krista gets back to me otherwise, we'll move on to a question from McGill. Are there any specific areas in which Canadian foreign policies starkly differ from our American or European allies? Priya, are you okay to answer that live, or do you want to get back to us later? Or
let me get back to you on that later. Let me actually look at my statistics. Yeah.
Great. So, Sonia, you can expect an email from me, and if anyone else is interested in the answers to that as well, you can email me about it, and we might put together a document based on what Priya just said. It's really valuable information, and we might send it out to everyone with the answers to those questions, if that's all right. Does that sound good, Priya?
Sounds perfect.
Excellent. Okay, so thank you so much, and I think we can move on to Elizabeth.
Hi, thanks, Addie. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I think it works.
Yep. Okay, perfect. So my name is Elizabeth. I'm the new communications director for STAND. I joined at the end of October. And the purpose of this part of the presentation, we're going to go over social media use. Our goal is sort of to make sure that the chapters and the national headquarters and everybody's very streamlined and coordinated in their social media use, because the idea is that the more we work together on our social media outputs, and the more visibility and the more traffic we get for all of our pages. So yeah, we're going to talk about a few ways that we can sort of coordinate and even just increase the amount of social media that we use as well. So I did develop a social media guide for all the chapters, which if it hasn't been sent to you already, it will be soon. So I definitely encourage you to take a look. I've included some hyperlinks to resources that you can use for things like scheduling posting, and I've sort of given you some explanations about how you can use these features to manage your time and use social media more time efficiently, because I know that we all get very busy, especially around exam times. So I'm just going to start off by quickly going over the objectives for social media use, and all of this information is also in the guide, so you can refer back to it later. So we use our social media primarily to engage Canadian students on issues that are related to genocide and genocide prevention in Canadian policy. We use it to draw in new followers and to provide those who are already following us with content to keep them engaged. We use social media to show people what we do as an organization and how they can get involved with us. And we use it to promote Stan's campaigns and activities and any sort of initiatives or events or anything that we have coming up. So I'm going to go over the priorities that we have for the next few months when it comes to using our social media. So a few things that we want to make sure that everybody is using and promoting and everybody's aware of. So the first is our survey, which Kristen will talk more about, but I'm just going to tell you guys a little bit about it now. So the point of this survey is that we want students' input as we sort of review our issue areas, as Priya was mentioning as well. So we've developed this survey for you to complete so that you all have a say in sort of what Stan's focusing on. And we also want you to promote this out to your student networks so that you can get the survey out as widely spread as possible and we can get as many responses as we can so that we have a really representative survey. So we're hoping that, first of all chapter members themselves will complete the survey. And we'd also like you guys to use your social media to promote the survey. And I provided a URL for it in the social media guide. So you have access to the survey in the guide. And I also created a list of sample tweets and a sample Facebook post and everything. So all the resources you need to promote the survey are there. So we're just really hoping that you guys can blast it out on your Twitter and Facebook pages. Another priority that we have coming up is this year Stan turns 10. So it's a sort of year-long event, but we're hoping to sort of promote the fact that this is, like, Stan's been around for 10 years now, so we're, a very well-established organization. And I mean, any events or fundraisers or anything that happen down the line, we'd like to be posting pictures of to sort of give a human face to our Stan members and show what we do as a group, as well as our online presence. This year is also the 10th anniversary of the start of the conflict in Darfur. So we'll be posting articles and op-eds in February, and as we post, we're hoping that you guys can share and retweet and like and sort of engage with these materials, so that we're all sort of promoting the same material, and that way it increases the traffic to it across the board. So we really want you guys to be getting it out to your student networks, and we'll share and repost your materials as well, and that way we can all be working together to get the same message out. And we're also, this is sort of an ongoing priority, but we use our social media to get out news updates, because we're trying to keep the people that are following us engaged in the subject matter and keep them informed, because that's ultimately the reason a lot of them follow us, is to stay informed on these topic areas. So we want to get information about new developments in our issue areas out, so that people continue to follow us and continue to see us as a resource for them to be informed on these subjects. Okay, so the two social media platforms that we use, as I'm sure you're all aware of already, are Facebook and Twitter. So I'm just going to go through a few of the separate uses for the two of them, and a couple of different tools that you can use. So for Facebook, first of all, we're hoping that we can get our Facebook pages linked a little bit better. All chapter members, we're hoping, can follow the national page, and then we'll get us to follow you guys as well, so that we're all sort of seeing the same updates and getting the same information, and we all have access to engage with each other's updates. We're also hoping to increase the amount of like-minded organizations that we follow. Organizations like the UNHCR and ICR2P and other organizations that are really engaged in this kind of subject matter. We can share their posts, we can tweet at them, we can we can like their posts and everything. It increases our visibility in this conversation, and it increases our engagement as well. I'm not sure if you guys have used this before, but you can schedule posts on Facebook now, which is a great resource in terms of time management. If you have, for example, the survey, you can go into Facebook on a Monday morning and set up an entire week's worth of posts blasting out the survey, and every day you'll have, automatic posts going out. It's completely hands-off for the rest of the week. It's all set up to go. And that way, instead of having to, remember to go back to it every day, it's set up on Monday and it's done for the week, and your work is done. So I definitely encourage you to be using that. It's just when you go to post on your page, right beside the post button, there'll be an option to schedule the post for later, and you can just schedule one post per day of the week. For Twitter, it's a lot of the same principles as Facebook. We want to be following each other, liking and retweeting and favoriting each other's posts. We use Twitter primarily for news updates, but also for promoting events and campaigns. You can also schedule posts on Twitter through TweetDeck. I provided a link in the social media guide. TweetDeck is a really easy to use platform. It's really convenient. Lots of chapter members can have access to it as well, so several people can be contributing to it. And you can go in and set up posts, a week or weeks in advance, and so you can set up, a whole bunch of different posts promoting one campaign or one issue, and just get all of them entered into TweetDeck and schedule the time that you want to post them for, and then they'll blast out automatically over the time period that you've set it for. So it definitely cuts down on the amount of time that social media use takes, because it can be quite time consuming. To increase traffic to all of our pages, we're hoping to follow and tweet each other and other like-minded organizations. And I've also included a list of handles that you can tweet at, just sort of for samples, just to increase our engagement in the Twitter sphere in this content. And there's also a list of hashtags in the social media guide that receive a lot of traffic and that are relevant to Stan's content. So yeah, you can refer to that list in the guide as well. So I've provided a couple of suggestions for sort of responsibility sharing and burden sharing for social media use. I would recommend having one person who's responsible for promoting campaigns and schedule posts, things that are coming up, for promoting the survey, and for promoting the different initiatives that we're planning well ahead. That way, sort of one person can be in charge of all the scheduling the posts in advance. But when you're doing things like news updates and sort of things that come as they happen, that's something that it's good to have lots of people contributing to, so that we have somebody responding to events as they unfold. So that's where TweetDeck comes in handy, because you can have lots of people with access to the same platform, and you can all share in the responsibility of making sure that our readership gets updated frequently. I also have a couple of recruitment notes just to end on. So the national team is recruiting blog writers still. We're looking for 1 to 2 more. So if anybody in your chapter is interested in being a blog writer for us, please get in touch. We're very excited to bring in some new hands. And I mentioned briefly that we do have some activities happening around the anniversary of the start of the conflict in Darfur. So we're going to be putting together a bank of op-eds and short little blog pieces and things like that to post. And we'd like to have that ready by the beginning of February. We're going to have some infographics about the conflict as well. And if anybody is interested in contributing to this and getting published on the STAN National website, we'd love to have you on our team. So please get in touch. And Priya also mentioned that Genocide Awareness Month is coming up. So that's something else that we're looking ahead to. We'd like to do sort of a similar type campaign. So if you're interested in getting involved in that, that'll be the month of April. So we'll be looking to start preparing for it in February and March and getting some content ready to go. So if you're interested in contributing during those months, then please get in touch and let me know. Okay. Are there any questions, Addie?
Hiding a cold sore behind a bride doesn't work.
No? What's not working?
To shorten the duration of your cold sore and soothe.
What is going on? Okay. Thanks so much, Liz. That was very informative. And I just want to add on to that we, like in a collaboration between chapters and communications, that we're discussing ways to put together more resources to make it easier for chapters to participate at a higher level in social media, particularly collaboratively with national. So things like Hootsuite and tools like that can be so useful. So we're talking about making videos, like video tutorials, and putting together documents, or even live workshops or one-on-one meetings. So let us know what you think about that, and any resources that we can provide, we're going to be working on. So that's excellent. Did I have anything else to add? I don't think so. Okay, so I think we're all set to move on to Kristen, unless anyone has any comments. One last moment, breath to take there. Okay. Kristen, are you good to go?
Yes. All right.
Okay.
Hi, guys. I'm Kristen. I'm the Advocacy Director. I'm going to be talking to you about two different things. The first one is our survey, and the second one is just quickly, we're also going to be talking a little bit about, sorry, just 1 second, I'm pulling up my document. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the anniversary. Sorry, I just clicked something onto full screen, so you guys can still see this? Adi?
Yeah.
I didn't mess up screen sharing? Okay.
Yeah.
So just to start by talking about the survey. So essentially what we're trying to do with Stand Advocacy is we're trying to put together a crowdsourced students' declaration on anti-genocide policies. So essentially this is going to be Stan's document that articulates what the policies that we want to see occur throughout 2015 are. And we want to use it to mobilize our efforts, so it'll be sort of the guiding framework that advocacy uses when we're talking to MPs, when we're trying to get our issues on the agenda for the 2015 election, and many different things like that. So the aim of the declaration is, first of all, with guidance from policy, but also with responses from this survey, to get a representative but also really well-researched document put together that says what STAND is for in this year. So that starts with the survey. So essentially what we've done is we've launched a survey on SurveyMonkey. I don't know if any of you have used that before, but it's a very easy to use tool, and essentially anybody can put in their responses to it, to different questions, and then after the survey closes, we'll be able to look at those responses to see how many people have responded in particular ways. The questions have things that pertain to STAND policies, so some of them pertain to how well-informed people are about particular issues, which countries are the biggest priority in their mind, whether they agree or disagree with the use of tools such as sanctions, all sorts of good stuff like that. And the aim is essentially to get a sense for what different people within STAND think. So the document will, in the outcome, be modeled sort of based on the foreign policy sections of political party platforms. And it's going to include both an articulation of general principles and also specific policies for each country of focus, as well as any other global policies such as, for example, getting us to sign on to the Arms Trade Treaty. So it's going to be very policy focused, but will also include broader principles. In terms of the when, we have opened the survey since October, and we're going to be closing it either on January 31st, which is our goal, or once we've attained 100 responses. We are currently 1/4 of the way to that goal. And from there, we're going to take those survey responses and, first of all, produce a document that we'll share that sort of says what Canadian students think, or the sample of 100 or more that we get. And then we'll also be using that to put together the declaration. We aim to launch the declaration by the end of February, but that will be dependent on us meeting our goal for the survey. From then, we're going to mobilize the document until the election in October. And what that essentially means is we would like to have different organizations sort of sign on or endorse the document. We're looking at a series of different organizations, but the key for us is we would like as many students' associations as possible to sign on. So that's where chapters are also going to come in and mobilizing the document, even though what I want to talk to you about mainly today is how you can work on the survey and support the survey, because that's what we're emphasizing right now. But in the longer term also, that will be a point for you guys to get involved as well. And then after we've done this entire effort, we're going to solicit feedback from you and from different directors to sort of gain some lessons learned on this initiative, because it's quite different from anything we've done before. In terms of the how, I'm going to give you guys a chapter handbook that should be coming out to you in the next few days, and that has a URL. You can also go to our Facebook page, and it has the URL included right on our display picture and also in posts that we update frequently, so it's quite easy to access. In terms of the goal, we aim to attain as many as 500 survey responses. That's our top line goal. But our minimum that we will accept is 100, because that is the number that you need to have a statistically relevant sample size. So 100 is sort of the minimum that we need, but 500 is the amount that we want. So that's what we're aiming for. In terms of how chapters can help, which is what you guys are here for, we're asking chapter representatives to do 3 things. The first is yourselves as chapter representatives and other people on your executive. Please complete the survey individually. So that's pretty straightforward. The second thing is please encourage other chapter members and your friends to complete the survey. So that involves sort of word of mouth spreading of the survey. Also at your meetings, please promote the survey. And then the third thing is sort of linked to some of the things that Liz was talking about earlier, which is that we would like for you to promote the survey via email or on social media. So the chapter package has a couple of different things in it towards that end. The first one is it's a little blurb that has suggested messaging, so how we would want to describe the survey. So you can draw from that or create your own message, totally up to you, but hopefully that will be a resource for you. The second thing is we have a hashtag. So if you want to use that, it's just hashtag #SpeakToStand. Because the survey is called Have Your Say, we want to emphasize that it's engaging with the views of the public. And then we also have a list of sample tweets, which you are not obliged to use, but which we think could be a resource that you might want to use, as well as a list of a few hashtags that you might want to use to increase the visibility of your tweets. So a couple of different resources in there to help you mobilize the survey so that we get as many responses as possible before that January 31st deadline. So that's the survey, and in the Q&A, if you have any questions with what's going on there, please let me know. Moving to the 10th anniversary, just very quickly, for those of you that don't know, the 10th anniversary is this February. Liz talked about it a little bit already. And essentially, we have some interest at Stand National in setting up some kind of a nationwide campaign for this effort. But we recognize that you guys are also very stretched in your resources, and that you also may already have things planned for the anniversary. So essentially what I want to do here is just to raise the issue, to ask, first of all, and I suppose we could bring this up in the Q&A if that's an easier forum for that, so I'll let Adi pick that. But first of all, we would like to ask, are you doing anything for the 10th anniversary already? Secondly, do you think there's anything, if you're not, is there anything that you think you would like to do? And third, if no events are occurring, how should we talk about this as a national community on social media? Because I really think that Stand should be operating as a unit, so if we can get some cohesiveness on what we're going to say for this by asking for your feedback, hopefully that will improve things. And I think that's it for me, Adi, so we can go to questions or the next agenda item.
Great, thank you so much, Kristen. So as some of you can probably already get ideas about how to share the survey, and for those of you who have very strong opinions about the direction that Stand should be taking, or ideas about things that you would like to be focusing on more, this is a really good opportunity. I also want to emphasize that especially over social media and email and in your newsletters and however you do that in your chapter, it's a really good idea to share it with clubs and other groups on campus who have worked with you in the past or who are natural allies to our mission, and their input is also very valuable to us as partners and potential partners. And the 10th birthday is also a great opportunity to reflect and bring past and current Stand members together So the survey and the 10th anniversary, I think, go really well together, and I'm really excited to see how that's going to go. One idea that might be a little bit premature to share, but we were talking about doing, for the 10th anniversary, a kind of shared photo album where we would go to the 10 years of alumni, 10 years worth of alumni that Stan has all over Canada and the world now probably, and collect stories and pictures from Stan that would go really great with the new website launch that's coming up as well. So I'm sure you will all be happy to know that the new website will be a big improvement on the old one. Great. Kristen, can we skip ahead slides a little bit?
Yes, I just realized that there was a question that was asked during Priya's that I could address. So maybe I'll do that now?
Sure.
Yeah, so the question, if I remember it correctly, was how do we classify priority countries? And I think that what Priya was sort of saying in terms of looking at genocide risk countries is definitely important. But in terms of process, we have an advocacy steering committee that occurs at National, and it includes policy as well as advocacy campaigns and the executive director. And so we sort of discuss these issues based on, first of all, the gravity of the human rights abuses that are occurring, particularly if there's going to be risk of genocide or if there have been acts of genocide. The second one is sort of the trajectory of the situation. Is it getting better or worse? And how likely is it in the short term that genocide will break out? The third one is whether there has been a lack of attention that has been paid to the situation. And then the fourth is to what extent Canadian actors, whether in government, civil society, or the private sector, are able to act to improve the situation. So those are sort of the metrics that we apply when we're deciding it within the Advocacy Steering Committee. It's very policy informed. Most of the decisions stem from the information that we get, but ultimately it's sort of what can we push to get action on? How can we maneuver government in a certain sense? So I hope that that's answered the question.
Great, thank you, Kristen. We do have one more question from Western here. I think I can answer it though. So I'll select that. So Aaron is asking, because it is relatively short notice to get something planned for February, would it make more sense to plan across our universities to plan for something later in the year? And I totally hear you on that. Right now what we're talking about is mostly a social media, online kind of based campaign, just to be kind of like reflective looking back. It's also a really good fundraising opportunity. So for those of you who have fundraising plans coming up for the rest of the semester, this can be a really good time to engage again with the alumni and the people that you know, to say, hey, you know, it's our 10th birthday. Remember all the good times we had at Stand, and do you want to give us money? And also share great memories and pictures and things like that that are really valuable for our records, and we can do a lot of cool things with if we get enough things. The other good thing about an anniversary, a 10-year anniversary, is it can be all year long. So we can definitely look at planning something later in the year, depending on what you guys are interested in doing, or also even in the upcoming academic year. Still counts, right? Does that answer your question, Erin?
Actually, just to add quickly, it might be nice if chapters are interested but feel that February, quite rightly, is a very short timeline to implement actual events. It might be good to organize something around sort of September, just after recruitment. So if that's something you guys are interested in, please let us know so we know whether it's worth organizing a series of events or what it is that you guys want to do.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for different types of things that we can do, and we'll certainly be working around your plans for the year, and we recognize that you've already prioritized what you want to do this semester, so it's by no means a requirement. Great. Erin, let me know if you want to follow up on that. Okay, so Kristen, do you mind skipping ahead to my bit a little bit?
No, not at all. Just give me 1 second.
Great, thanks.
This one?
Next one. Great, thanks.
No worries.
All right, so just a few things to wrap up before we end today. I wanted to let you guys know about a couple of things that we're working on in chapters. So something that we have here that I've put together right now is the event promotion form. So if Kristen, can you go to the next one? Sorry that this is complicated. So you can see here kind of an online form that we've put together. So in order to help promote your events in chapters, we are giving you the opportunity to submit a form online, super easy to do. You can do it whenever you want. Just give us the information for your event, and we'll schedule it into our promotions as well on social media, etc. And we can talk to you about how best to help you promote your events. So the reason why we're putting this together is because this is something that some of you have indicated that you would be very interested in. And then on the flip side, we really want the information about your events, so we want to provide you as much value as possible for that information, so that we know what's best so that we know what is going on in all the chapters, and we can promote that and derive like national benefit from all the great work that you guys are doing. The other upside of that is that it can help us get our chapter digest going. So I've spoken to, I think, all of you now about it, that we want to put together a digest, a monthly digest of chapters. What are you guys up to? What are you doing? What should you be expecting from national? And what kind of deadlines are coming up? What events are coming up that you could be working on? And I really want to get that started this term. So if you could send me your event information through this form, you will get promotion from us, and we will also be able to get that up and running. And there's a lot of other uses for that as well. So you're going to hear a little bit more from me about this via email and probably other channels as well. Great. Kristen, next slide. Kristen? Okay, thank you.
Yes, sorry, what did you want me to change the slide again?
Yeah, could you skip ahead to the one after the next one?
This one?
Yeah, so the next thing, the information that I need from you guys, earlier we had talked about the representatives from chapters. So in your chapter you should have a communications representative, an advocacy representative, and so on and so forth, according to what's in the chapter handbook that we all went over over the summer. And I wanted to make it really easy for you guys to submit this information to us, especially now that you should have your executives as fully formed for this year as they are going to be. So this form is also an online form. I'll share with you the link. You just select your chapter, you put the name and the executive title of your representative and the email address, and you can select what team that they're on. A single person can be representative for more than one team, so you just need to submit the form one time for each person who's being assigned. So you should have the president, an advocacy representative, a campaigns representative, a communications representative, and a fundraising representative. So you will hear, again, more about this from me via email, but I just wanted to show you guys on the call what this looks like and explain to you a little bit verbally for those of you who respond better to that kind of communication. Great. Then next slide, if we could just go forward with that one. And then I wanted to remind you guys about submitting your executive list. There's two functions for this. One is that we can have a record of the people who are involved in the chapter that year. This really helps with transitions. It really helps with chapters that can be in trouble in later years. And most importantly, it helps us get a sense of how your chapter is structured and how it works, which is so specific to the different campuses. So in order to best respond to how you guys do things, if you submit an executive list and we can get an idea of how the organization functions on the campus level for each chapter, it is hugely useful. It is also very great for transitions. So I've put together a sample document that you will also get for the executive list. This will be one of the documents that will be included in the transitions package that we'll be introducing in April. So one of the things that I talked to all of you about already that National will be helping you with this year is undergoing your executive transitions from this academic year to the next academic year, which will take place from April all the way till September. So you can expect to hear more from me on that as well. So you can see that there's been a lot of information today in this call. So in the next day or two, you'll get a follow-up email from me with a bunch of documents and lists and links and all sorts of great, awesome stuff that you can share with your group. I hope that the call has been beneficial for you, and again, we always look for feedback on how we can improve. So I'm going to open the floor for the last round of questions before we wrap. And yes, thank you so much for attending. We had good representation today. Okay, so I'll just wait for a couple seconds for you guys to type questions if you like. And then we can end. Okay, so I think that we are probably good to end it for today. This call was recorded on YouTube, so you can share it with the rest of your chapter. And for those of you who missed the live call and you're watching it either a little bit delayed or you are watching it at a later date, you can always send your questions and comments to me, and I will distribute them to the people as, for the interest of simplicity, you can just send all your questions to me and I'll do the rest of the work. And thank you so much for attending again, and have a great weekend. And thanks so much for Kristen and Elizabeth and Priya, who took time out of their day today. Much appreciated, and thank you. Excellent. Have a good one.